A massive shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2022-23 season. My name is Dan and it's Game Week 22 finally upcoming, and we need to do a buy, sell, keep, avoid video for the game week. So that's what we're going to do today, guys. If you do enjoy this one, please do leave a like and please do subscribe if you're new around here. Very quickly, buys are players you probably don't have but should consider bringing in. Sells are players you probably have but should consider removing. Keeps are players you might be thinking about removing but I think you should keep them. And avoids are players that are pretty hyped up right now but I think there are potential traps that should be avoided. I'm getting really fast at that one. Let's start off with some buys. Alright, so our first buy is Bruno Fernandes. I do feel like if you've already got Rashford, if you've already got Luke Shaw, then Fernandes does have to be your number one transfer target for Game Week 22. And that's because he has got this very nice double game week, 2 home fixtures against Crystal Palace and Leeds. This is looking really good for Fernandes. So he's definitely a player who you want to be putting very high on your priority list. Now, for a lot of people, it's just going to be a case of how you can get him into your team. I know a lot of people are going to maybe have to remove players like De Bruyne in order to get Fernandes in. I think that is something that you should definitely be considering, especially if you don't have too many other problems in your team right now, and you feel like you can afford to, you know, do the Fernandes in and then De Bruyne back in the week after, if you want to do the in-out, shake it all about, hokey-cokey of these premium midfielders. I think that's actually valid as long as you don't have too many other problems elsewhere in your team that you have to address. And the reason why it's so important to get Fernandes in is because amazing double game week, really nice fixtures even after that. If you did want to keep him for the slightly longer term, it's definitely still an option. But he is playing really well right now and he's providing some really good numbers, some good stats that we've seen. He's playing in a very much in-form Manchester United team, and everything is looking very good for Manchester United in general, and it feels like there's going to be some very high-scoring United players. And if we're looking for the high-scoring players, well, it's going to be Rashford, it's going to be Fernandes, it's going to be, you know, Luke Shaw. These are the players we're going to be looking at, and Fernandes is even kind of, I feel like, a valid differential captain shout as well. If you did want to go a slightly different angle to Rashford, Fernandes is a valid captain as well there. You can look at his numbers here, guys. His creative numbers are absolutely phenomenal. He's on set pieces. He is going to be on penalties, and most Man United fans do believe that Fernandes is going to be back on penalties, which is very good for him as well. And the potential for FPL points, you know, twice the games means twice the opportunities to get that bit of luck to get that penalty for your player. So it's all looking good. So if you guys have got players like, I don't know, Salah or any other midfielders that's quite expensive that you're not really too bothered about having in your team, you're happy to remove these kind of players, or you know you've got a lot of money in the bank and you can upgrade one of your other midfielders, then I definitely would be making this move. Bruno Fernandes is probably the number one transfer target for you guys for Game Week 22, even though he's probably going to blank in Game Week 25. I would just deal with that a little bit later. The points in the short term are going to make that worthwhile. Okay, our second buy, and I guess a non-double game week player, because like I say, with Man United, it's all about Rashford, Bruno Fernandes and Luke Shaw. For Leeds United, I'm not actually too keen. I don't think you need to get those Leeds United players, but I definitely think it could be a really good idea to go in 1 week early on some of these Arsenal double game week players. And I know a lot of people are talking about Saka and Ødegaard, but I actually think Elliott and Nketiah could be the top target, the number one Arsenal player to go for right now, full stop. Good fixture in Game Week 22 against Everton, so there's no problem going in 1 week early for that one. Double game week in 23, and then very good fixtures beyond that as well. And Arsenal players, particularly now that they're out of the FA Cup, they're not in the League Cup either. There's not going to be too many blank game weeks anytime soon, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. There is potential for blanks, of course, there always is, but you know, Arsenal are looking pretty good to be able to go ahead and play a lot of fixtures over the following game weeks, which is really nice, and they're good fixtures as well, very good fixtures. So with that out the way, don't need to worry about that. We've got the double, very close. We need to think about what Arsenal players we're going to get. Well, look at these numbers, guys. 3.89 expected goals, 0.7 expected assists. And what this shows me is that, yes, Nketiah's got 4 goals in 5 games, but it shows me and it shows you guys that he's actually, you know, making good of the numbers he already has. He's not getting lucky. He's not overperforming. He is just a player who is getting an insane amount of opportunities to score goals at the moment in this Arsenal team that is centered around him as a kind of spear point to this Arsenal team that is in very good form and has played some difficult fixtures as well, and Nketiah is still doing so well. He's nailed on playing 90 minutes every game, so you know you're going to get a lot of minutes out of him, particularly until Gabriel Jesus comes back into the team. Nketiah is pretty much nailed on for your Arsenal team here, and is just getting so many real good, high-quality chances to score. And if that continues in, you know, some of these easier fixtures and in double game weeks, we are going to see some really nice hauls from him. We really are. And for 6.7 million, it does put him as, without a doubt, the best of the cheaper forwards. You know, from mid-price to cheap forwards, Nketiah right now, I do believe, is the very best one to go for. Ahead of Tony, ahead of Mitrovic, ahead of Weghorst, or whoever else you guys are thinking about going for right now. Non-Toe, maybe. Nketiah is number one for me, so therefore, he is a buy. Cancelo is a sell-o. I don't think I need to make too much of an argument here, to be honest. But yeah, I know a lot of you guys have still got Cancelo in your team, and perhaps you're looking to get in, you know, a Luke Shaw, or, you know, maybe some other Man City defenders, or maybe you want to get an Arsenal defender in for the upcoming game weeks. If so, and you've still got Cancelo, he is the easiest player to sell in your entire team. And the great thing about selling Cancelo is that you free up so much money as well. 7.1 million is just way too much money for what Cancelo is offering at the moment. First of all, he can barely even start games at the moment. He doesn't seem to be part of Pep Guardiola's favoured starting 11 for Man City. So even though we have got this double game week coming up, it's not really going to count as a double game week if you've got, you know, you're getting limited minutes there. Spurs away is a difficult fixture as well, even if he does start that one. So you're not going to, you know, suffer too much if you do sell him. And also, and this goes back to his price, when you're paying this much money for a defender, you don't just want clean sheets. And by the way, guys, I still do believe Man City are the best, if not one of the best defenses in the league. I know they haven't always been getting clean sheets recently, but we have got some better fixtures coming up, and I do think that can very, very quickly change. But I do think we do need to kind of still acknowledge Man City as a defense. But you look at these numbers, you look at the attacking numbers, 0.09 XG since the break, 0.13 expected assists since the break. This is really, really poor. Really, really poor. It's not good enough for the money that you pay for Cancelo. Obviously, it's not Cancelo's fault that he costs so much in FPL, but at the same time, look, this is not ideal, really. So a very easy sell for me, and replace him with a nice double game week defender, I guess. Next sell is Almiron. So yeah, I'm actually going to sell Almiron. I've been kind of hesitant to say outright that Almiron is an actual full-blown sell. I've been saying for a few weeks, you know, he's definitely one of the players you should consider selling. But I think we've got to a point now where he's just a player that you probably just do want to just outright sell. Just sell him. Like, if you have him, it's time to go. Like, probably one of the first players that a lot of you guys have that it just needs to go now, which is completely fair enough, because look at these numbers, guys. Since the World Cup break, 0.72 XG, 0.36 expected assists. This is really, really low once again for a player who is getting minutes. These are really, really low numbers, and Newcastle in general are just not creating enough chances, not scoring enough goals. They're doing very well defensively, but it's not really happening for them attacking-wise, and Almiron is really, really suffering. It seems like before the World Cup particularly, he was in this hot vein of form, really, really good form. But since then, since back in November, you know, this form is just kind of not there anymore. So we know from history that Almiron is not a player who does consistently put up these amazing numbers that we were seeing from him before the World Cup. So maybe we're kind of just getting back to normal in many ways, back a return to the average normal Almiron that we kind of all know and love. Obviously, he's a fantastic player, but he's not at this moment putting up those insane numbers, and therefore he is very easy to sell when we have got a situation where there are so many midfielders that we want to go for right now. I mean, think of the Arsenal midfielders: Saka, Ødegaard, De Bruyne, Mahrez from Man City, you know, these Man United midfielders as well, Fernandes, Rashford, and then we've got players like, you know, Kaoru Mitoma as well, who I know a lot of people are looking at getting him in this week. So there are so many midfielders that you guys are going to really want to have in your FPL teams right now, and someone has to be sacrificed, and I think it's very easy to make an argument to sell Almiron given how much his numbers have dropped off. So Martinelli is going to be a keep for me. I think he is still worth keeping. Like, I mean, looking at his numbers, they're not incredible. Look, these are not top tier numbers. And would I say buy Martinelli right now? Probably not. I would say look elsewhere in the Arsenal midfielders. I do prefer Saka. I do prefer Ødegaard. But that's not to say that Martinelli is a player that you want to sell necessarily. Because obviously we've got this Everton game, good fixture, and then we have got that double game week after that. And we are expecting Martinelli to keep starting games. There's no real strong reason to suggest that he should be rotated. His, you know, touches in the box numbers are still unrivaled in the Premier League. It's absolutely insane. He's been fairly direct. And his numbers, like I say, they're not too bad. They're not too bad. If we're kind of looking at this 1.31 XG, 1.34 XA, this is kind of about, you know, 2.53 expected goal returns in the last 5 games. That's not too bad, really. Yeah, that probably means that you do expect him to return at least once in the double game week, which is, you know, that's good enough. I think that's a pretty decent kind of return there. Still taking a lot of shots, particularly in the box. He's still spending a lot of time in the box, and if you're in those dangerous areas, you're always going to get these opportunities. And I know Martinelli has blanked 3 games in a row now, but you have to consider these opponents as well. There were 3 tough oppositions that Arsenal have played. You know, likes of Manchester United, the likes of Spurs. These are real big derby games for Arsenal that, you know, you can't always expect even the best players to score all the time in the more difficult fixtures. And the fixtures now look a lot better. So I do think this is going to give Martinelli the kind of style of player he is to do well in these games. I know some of you guys may say, oh, we didn't play in the FA Cup. Maybe Trossard is going to come in there as well. But I don't know if how many of you guys watched the game. You may have seen that when Martinelli did come on against Manchester City, he did look really, really good, really sharp, playing really directly, and he did really add a new element that was kind of lacking in the Arsenal attack on that left-hand side during the time that he was on the pitch. So he actually looked really good when he was on the pitch. So, like Martinelli a lot, I do feel like, yes, he's not maybe the top-tier elite kind of FPL pick right now, but he's still up there. He's still a very good pick. He's just below that kind of top tier, and unless you are really in a situation where your team is pretty much perfect right now, I would probably say that you do have other transfers that are probably more worth making than selling Martinelli. Okay, this is a surprising one, guys. Yes, FPL Mate is putting Saliba in the keep section. For once, I've actually made a video where I'm not suggesting to avoid Saliba. Now, I have to admit, I'm still not saying, like, buy Saliba. I'm still definitely not saying that one. But I've actually looked at, like, kind of some of the numbers of people who are being heavily sold so far in Gameweek 22. And Saliba is one of the most popular players being sold at the moment, which I find absolute craziness, absolute lunacy. This is bizarre. This is wild. What are the Saliba sellers thinking? I would love to get in their heads right now. I understand he's maybe not the most cost-effective way of getting into the Arsenal defence. You know, Gabriel a little bit cheaper with better attacking threat, of course. Ben White, I would think it's kind of slowing down a little bit because Ben White has become a slight minutes risk. So maybe that kind of puts Saliba even with Ben White at this moment. So Saliba is maybe becoming a slightly better Arsenal defender. I would still go for Gabriel over him every single time, but would I sell Saliba when he's about to play Everton, a double game week after that, the likes of Aston Villa and Leicester, and some really, really insanely good fixtures beyond that, and no blank game weeks on the horizon either? This doesn't seem like any reason to sell him. Like, he's super nailed on. Arsenal are a very good defence. They're going to keep clean sheets. Attacking returns might not always be there, but Saliba does fairly well for bonus points when there's not too many goals in a game. So look, I think you have to keep him. If you have Saliba already, particularly if you bought him for a nice cheap price, you've got to keep him. There's very few players I would sell Saliba for, and they would, you know, if it's the only way of you getting in Luke Shaw, I guess so, but like, surely that's not the case. Surely there's another defender in your team you can sell in order to get the likes of Luke Shaw in your team. Like, Saliba surely is not the player you want to sell. I mean, I guess another reason you could sell Saliba is if you already have like Ramsdale, Gabriel and Saliba in your team and you just desperately want an Arsenal attacker, perhaps. I guess that would be a reason, but I'm struggling to think of like a mainstream reason why so many people are selling him. You've got to see it. You got to keep. If you got him, you got to keep it. On to some avoids. First avoid is going to be Fabian Schär. He's up to 5.2 million now, so he is getting pretty darn expensive, and that is quite a lot of Wonga to be spending on a defender who blanks in game week 25. Probably, it's looking really, really likely that Newcastle are going to blank in game week 25. That is a real concern right now, guys, because of Newcastle's participation in the League Cup final, which takes place at the same time as game week 25. So, you know, it's not looking good. It's really not looking good. So, therefore, on screen, we've got to just assume that Fabian Schär has a blank until further notice. We'll know for sure a little bit closer to the time. We'll have a 99.9% idea like by the end of today, actually. So yeah, by the time this video comes out, you might already know for a fact that, well, we're very close to a fact because you never know in football, but you might know with pretty much full confidence that Newcastle blank in 25. And if that is the case, and I think it is going to be the case, then, you know, surely then now is not the time to be loading up on Newcastle defenders. You're going to set yourself in a serious problem in game week 25. Like, the problem is, Cher is such a, you know, he's such a high value player. Like, he is looking good. He's taken an insane amount of shots. Newcastle look like they're going to keep a clean sheet every single game week, which is really, really nice. So, yes, he could do well in the short term. But unless you're using a free hit in game week 25 and you're specifically planning to use a free hit in game week 25, which I don't think is the optimal play, but I guess it's an option. I just feel like you're going to find yourself in big trouble. You know, if you're buying you've already got, you know, Shaw, Rashford, you're buying Bruno Fernandes, maybe you've got Trippier in your team, you've got maybe Tony in your team, you're maybe thinking about Mitoma and maybe some other Brighton players, you know, maybe you've got Raya in your team or Ben Mee, and now you're adding Fabian Schär to the mix, maybe you've got Almiron already, maybe you've got, you know, all of these players that I've just mentioned are all going to blank in game week 25. And if that happens, and you've got all of these players, then you'll find yourself with, like, I don't know, a squad of like 7 or 8 players actually available to play in game week 25, and that's going to spell big problems. And if you've already used your free hit, you're going to be in mega problems. If you have to use your wild card to fix it, then it's just crazy because it's just such a small blank. It's so easily avoided. All you need to do is just stick with Trippier and a couple of Manchester United players, and you can just breeze through game week 25. You can even add like 1 or 2 more as long as you can transfer them out by that time. It just seems a bit crazy to load up too heavily on like some of these players who blank in 25, particularly if they don't double between now and then. We've only got 3 game weeks for it to be worth your while kind of thing. And the double game week players seem like they're going to be the players who are actually going to be worth going for in the short term. So yeah, Fabian Schär, yes, I appreciate that he's, you know, he could get some good points over the next 3 game weeks, but is he worth going for ahead of the likes of some double game week players? And how's your team going to look in game week 25 if you decide to buy the likes of Fabian Schär? That's kind of what I'm saying. And my final avoid, I'm actually going to go for Mykhailo Mudryk, which I'm kind of like, I'm not totally happy putting him in this category because I do recognise that there is a very good player here who I think could do well at certain times. I feel like there is going to be a place for him in our FPL teams at some point in this season, to be fair. But it's a risk, obviously. We've got a bit of a risk here. He's looked good so far, but look, we haven't had that many minutes to have a look at him in the Premier League yet. So we just need to be aware of that. But I think the main reason why I'm not happy with going for Mudryk personally right now is because, like I kind of alluded to earlier, there are so many midfielders that I want right now, particularly from the likes of Arsenal, Man United and Man City, all 3 of whom have double game weeks in 22 or 23. There is just not a place for Mudryk. Like I said before, if you add the likes of Mitoma to that equation and some other midfielders, you know, Rodrigo for Leeds perhaps, like, we get to a point where it's like, is there room for Mudryk in our team? I would say probably not. He's a fun pick, that's for sure. But the fact that we've got so many double game week players in the next 2 game weeks that are in better form, they are Premier League proven, kind of seems a little bit silly to spend 7 million on Mudryk when you can wait a couple of game weeks, get these game weeks out the way where, you know, we've got these reliable double game week players in 22 and 23, and then maybe after that, at that point, we can turn our attention to going for something a little bit spicier, and it gives you an opportunity to have a look at him in the Premier League, have a look at him for a couple more games, see how he plays, see how he fits in. Can Chelsea turn their form around a little bit more? All of this stuff, because we know Chelsea aren't scoring very many goals, so, you know, that's going to limit opportunities. So we can have a look at it, we can go for some of the more sensible players right now, and then try and go for the fun pick. I think that is the way I would personally like to play, and therefore I am going to put our new Ukrainian masterman, if that's the thing. I'm going to put him in the avoid section. Quick summary, guys. I think typically we want to be going for these double game week players. The Manchester United players are obviously the priority there. And I think like Arsenal players are probably the second priority. So once you've got your Man United players, once you've got your Arsenal players, I feel like after that, that's when we start looking at some players from other teams, really. Again, probably want to be keeping a very close eye on the blanks in game week 25. The teams that are looking like, as I record this video, are going to blank are going to be Manchester United, Newcastle United, Brentford and Brighton, all looking super likely to have no fixture in game week 25. And if you feel like that is going to cause you a problem and you haven't really got a plan to navigate that one, then just think about that. Consider how you're going to navigate game week 25 before committing to transfers for these players. You know, me personally, I am going to be going for another Manchester United player this game week, but I've already got a plan in mind to remove them. And fortunately for me, I haven't got too many other players from some of the other teams that are, you know, likely to blank in 25. So we've got a plan, and I think that's kind of the same idea that I think you guys should be going for as well. But there are your recommendations for the week. Make sure you do like this video and do subscribe if you are new around here as well. That would be massively appreciated. Loads more content to come throughout the week. Before you go, a quick shout out to my mates over at Squarespace who have kindly sponsored this video. Squarespace is a powerful and beautiful online platform that you can use to easily create your own website. It's a great way to create an online community without needing any coding experience, and fully integrated extensions can help you with those annoying things like inventory management, bookkeeping, tax, and international shipping. Connect with your audience and generate revenue through gated members-only content, manage your members, send email communications, and leverage audience insights all in one easy-to-use platform. There has never been a better time to step up your side hustle. If this sounds like it's for you, then go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/FPL Mate to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.